Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to the weekly curriculum and technical support webinar. Well, it's not a webinar, it's a live stream for the curriculum the Career Choices series, mytenureplancom, and Get Focused, Stay Focused. I am Brianne. I am taking over for Chris, who previously did this and is no longer here. So please bear with all of my stumbles. And Brooke, who you recognize.
Hi, everybody.
Nope, the other way is here with us also.
Hey, everybody. I hope everyone's having a good week. And this is not your first rodeo, Brianne. So this is just your first time taking the lead.
Yes.
So, hi, Spencer. Oh, there we go. Just breaking things. Spencer popped in and said, hi. If everyone would please take a moment to introduce yourself and say hi. And we have some awesome things that are going to be happening today. Brianne, would you mind throwing out the 3 reasons why people should stay?
Absolutely. So we've got Edutopia articles for educator mental health, which, as I'm sure we can all agree, that our educators are in desperate need of supporting their mental health these days. We're gonna learn about the one activity that we recommend students do on mytenureplancom first, and we're going to learn about the powerful tool within my tenure plan for this chapter. So with that, please stick around till the end. And Brooke, do you want to take us into our news minute?
Yes. So we are going to talk about our newsletter. If you have not signed up for the newsletter, please do that. It is a fabulous resource. We're going to talk about the Edutopia article that we're featuring this week. So it's not resources just from us. It is resources from outside sources that we feel like would be beneficial for teachers and administrators using the Career Choices materials. And so I'm going to go ahead and pop it up here. So this is what this week's newsletter is. We'll put the direct link to this newsletter in the chat once we are done today. And then I will post the link for you to be able to sign up for the newsletter. That way you don't have to come get the link from us every week, even though we want you to come join us.
Absolutely.
So the article that we're going to be talking about this week is from Edutopia, and it talks about 4 different ways that teachers can stay grounded. We shared this on our LinkedIn, so if you don't follow our LinkedIn, please go do that. But this is such an important article. I really, really liked this resource this week. It was very helpful for me personally. But we're only going to talk about one aspect of it, and then you have to go find the other 4. So the first section of this, which I felt like was really applicable, is establish and revisit your core beliefs. So I don't know about everybody else, but in the last 2 years, I feel like I have gone from being a mid-range introvert extrovert, kind of in the middle. Anytime I've done any sort of testing, I've always fallen right in the middle range. And I feel like I've swung completely introvert since the pandemic started, and so there is really important to be able to focus and go back to your core beliefs and figure out if that's still what is important to you. And so you can see all of the bullet points there. This is a fabulous read. So I do recommend you go read it. And we're going to talk a lot more today about how we can identify those core beliefs and how we encourage students to do that. So we're going to go back to the newsletter. And for those of you who are keeping up with me, we are having thunderstorms again today. No tornado warnings. I did not blow away last week, and I won't blow away this week. But if I disappear, it's because the power went out.
And then you'll be stuck with me.
So, wonderful Midwest spring weather. Although it has been cool, which I'm really grateful for. So we have a lot of upcoming webinars that I wanted to make you aware of. We had our Tips Tuesday webinar last night, which was on the traits of those who get ahead. Next month, we are going to have a best practice highlights, which is going to talk about program assessment. And then also we have our 10-year plan summary page creation webinar done by Tanya Eason. You do not want to miss this.
Absolutely. Tanya is amazing when she presents, and she's so clear and she's funny. So absolutely, you want to be there for that.
Yeah, I mean, I've sat through probably 100 of her presentations, not this specific presentation, but I can just sit and listen to her present all the time because she's so clear and concise and everything makes sense and it's actionable.
Yep, absolutely.
So yeah, don't miss that. All right. And we are going to go to our sponsor moment. We started these last week, and this week our sponsor is actually being featured in the newsletter as well. So this week we are being brought to you by our In-Person Institute in Santa Barbara. I hope everyone enjoyed that. And if you are not aware of the fact that we are starting in-person trainings again, please go to the newsletter and click on those links.
We'll also put the link for that to register for that in the chat when we are done today.
Yes. So now we are going to move to our main content of the day, which is Career Choices, Chapter 2, pages 30 through 37. Now, this is the same in both Career Choices and Changes. So, if anyone remembers that conversation, we do have the two different textbooks, but this will be the same page in both of them. So, this is a longer section than we've ever really talked about before. And it is actually the closest thing we have to a traditional online survey in the entire book. I don't know if everyone who's watching is familiar, but we do not recommend having students take the online career interest surveys that you go to. They have them all over. You can find them pretty much anywhere. But it has an effect of kind of seeming very magical, and the students really don't get invested because they don't know why the system is telling them that they need to do this specific thing. So we don't recommend doing those type of online surveys. But this survey presents the students with a ton of different quotes from people that emphasize different value focuses. So it allows them to rate them 1 to 5 on how much they identify with that specific sentence. And it's a really, really long survey. So the section in the textbook starts out with a story. Okay. And it's about someone who is having a hard time identifying what he wants to do with life. And this story takes us through this chapter takes us through his journey. And then it asks the students to identify the values that are important to them for work. And then it ends with a description of, let's see, 13 different value categories. I had to forgot the number. 13 different value categories. And we're going to talk a little bit more about those in a minute. But these are things that, actually, I am going to get to that thought in a minute. So the very first sorry. The very first help that we have for this is the online class agenda. And if anyone is new to teaching this activity, please go to the online class agenda and watch this video before you teach chapter 2. It is so helpful. And I'm going to go ahead and put it up on the screen. So we have the all right. So we have our mini video lecture series, and this video is done by Carol Keyser, and she goes through and she breaks down this activity very, very simply. So it allows you to be able to communicate it to your students more simply. And so this is one of our big reasons to stay. This is actually one of the activities that we do recommend putting into mytenureplancom before you have the students do it in the textbook or workbook. So the reason for that is it's a very, very, very long survey to be able to help the students identify what their work values are. And so the mytenureplancom calculates that up for you. And once the students go through and they check, then the system will automatically tell them which of their values is the most important to them. That way, they don't have to go through and count up 150, I think, different numbers and rate them on how important they are. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the process that we generally recommend as best practice, we have the Career Choices textbook, the Career Choices workbook, and the Career Choices mytenureplancom. The workbook and mytenureplancom have identical activities. So a lot of our new teachers who are not familiar with the course do sometimes have questions about why the students are being asked to do the activities in the workbook and then again online. There's a very, very important reason for this. Most of this material is very new for students. Most of them have never been exposed to most of these concepts at any depth at all. So what you're doing when you present the student with a new material is you give the students a new lens to view life through. And so as they're going through and they're learning the material, we encourage them to write down their initial thoughts, concepts, everything in their workbook. Then give it a break of about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then have them go put it into mytenureplancom and put it into their online portfolio. Allow them to change it. That's the point. So you've got the workbook as the first brain dump, first draft, and then mytenureplancom is the polished final draft. And what I discovered when I went through the course as a 22-year-old was after the 2 or 3 week break that I had taken, I went back to my workbook and there were thoughts that I thought I had written. But turns out they were not there. They were not in the workbook. And so I was able to capture those thoughts fairly soon after, so I didn't lose them as I put them into mytenureplancom. If I hadn't have done that second draft, I would have completely lost that information. So, really long explanation for why it is very important to use the high-tech, high-touch process. Forces the students to do a draft and then a final version, and it allows them to capture the thoughts that they have had since learning that new material. So, in case you can't tell, I'm really passionate about that. Can you tell Brianne that I'm really passionate about that subject?
I can tell.
It's so important.
That's when I get to sit back and just let you be passionate about it.
Yes, and this is why we always go overtime with these live streams. But yeah, it's so important to be able to have that. However, this is the one case where we do recommend doing this online first because it auto calculates for the students. So it makes this activity much simpler and allows it to be more effective that way. Also, all they're doing is going through and checking whether something is very true or not true for them. So it's not like there's a whole lot to capture there. But everything else, workbook first, then into my tenureplancom. Anyway, so there's that rant for today. And now we are going to one other thing I wanted to talk about in the online class agendas is the small group activity. So once your students complete this and they figure out what their top 3 values are, break them out into groups and have them brainstorm what good careers would match with specific values. Which then leads me to something I really wanted to talk about, which is from the instructor's guide. Now, if you do not have an instructor and administrator's guide, please, please, please let us know so that we can help you order one, because it is so beneficial. In chapter 4, for this section, it discusses there's an of special note section, which I always read those when those pop up because it's very important. So in the special note in the instructor's guide for this activity, it makes sure to point out the difference between work values and what we typically think of in our culture as virtues, but we use that word interchangeably with the word values. So this is not a student's set of virtues that they base their life on. This is values. Work values is strictly what they value in work. So it's just putting the importance on what they think is important. Did I explain that clearly, Brianne?
I think so. I think so. Yes. It's more of what they want out of their work environment that they're looking at versus like you said, virtues. This just indicates their preference. I prefer to work outside. I prefer to work with other people.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so it's morally neutral. It's not, it just indicates a preference as opposed to anything deeper. So it's important not to get hung up on that. This isn't something that is their needs to be their guiding star for their entire life. So one of the work values that I really, really focus with, and we're not going to go through them all, but I did want to talk about the ones that we kind of identify with. Mine is very much friendship and companionship. People are very, very important to me. Even though I am a hermit and I don't like to leave my house, my phone is a lifeline for me because that's how I connect with people. And so something that is really important for me at my job is to have people that I enjoy working with, which is why I cried last week on the live stream when Chris left. So
right, we all miss Chris,
yes.
But I enjoy working with you, Brooke.
Yes, and I'm very excited that you're going to be on the live streams too, because yes, Brianne and I have been working together for almost 10 years.
Yeah, as long as you've been here.
I think I met you 10 years ago in March.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense.
When I came to my very first training at the office.
Yes.
And so, yeah, so we've had the opportunity to become pretty good friends over the years. And so that's something that is really, really important to me for a workplace environment is I cannot be isolated constantly. Although I do enjoy working from home by myself, I constantly am interacting with my coworkers because I love you guys.
We love you too.
So, Brianne, what was the work value survey? Did you have one that stuck out to you?
I also like working with people a lot. that's one thing for me, that because I lean more on the extrovert side of things. And so working with people, and more specifically, supporting people, like customer support type things, are the things that really are important to me. So helping people and working with people pretty much are the two big ones for me.
Yeah, I guess it shouldn't be surprising that that one is the top, one of the top priorities for you and I, who've worked in customer success and
Right.
customer support for the last 10 years.
Yeah,
So not surprising, we both identified very strongly with that, which means we're in the right jobs, right?
that's right. That's right.
So, that just kind of gives you a taste of why it's important to understand where your work values are, because if for someone who values, I'm going to just throw one out there, for somebody who values adventure, working from home at a computer, even if it's helping people, if that's not an emphasis for them, then an adventure is more important for them, this job would drive them absolutely crazy.
Oh, completely.
You know?
Completely. My husband was a banker for a long time, and recently got a job where he gets to drive around and have adventures all day, and it's his favorite thing. And if he would have known that that's what he preferred, he could have gotten into that a lot sooner.
Yeah, that's a really good example. So yeah, I mean, so that's why it's so important to go through this activity, and why it's important not to shortchange it, because it does give a lot of information that the students are going to need as they build up to finding what careers would be a good fit for them.
Absolutely. We want it tailored to them, not just a randomization.
Yes.
Randomization.
Yes. So one of the last things that I'm going to show you on my screen is the helps from the teachers lounge for this section. So Phyllis Stewart, who used to teach this, and she was one of our trainers for a long time, still is, made these grading checklists because her school very much emphasized testing and needing to have a grading metric for everything. And so she put together a lot of grading checklists, and this was one of them for the work value survey. So that allows you to be able to integrate that into a more traditional testing grading metric structure. And there's a lot of other fabulous stuff in there too, but we're not going to talk about that today, because my goal is to stay under 30 minutes.
We can do it.
Chris and I did it last week by about 30 seconds.
Nice.
So, but before we jump into the last thing, I would like to pull up a couple of comments from Spencer. So he said that what an online quiz told him to be an engineer. Math is very important for an engineer. And so yeah, I don't think that is a good fit at all. And I don't know any of those online surveys that do any sort of math testing.
Right. No.
So how are they possibly going to know that you would be a good at being an engineer? And then of course he said, wish it would have done this activity in high school. Same.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely the
Like
same.
you said, if your husband had the opportunity to understand this, he wouldn't have probably, I mean, he seemed to be
sat
really
in a
good at
bank
his
for
job
10
as a
years.
banker. Yeah, but he wouldn't have sat there being not as fulfilled as he could have been.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes. So, the last thing we're going to do today, and I'm going to go ahead and bring up some visuals, but I'm going to have Brianne, as our tech support specialist, talk about the mytenureplancom side of this and how to use that. So go ahead and get started. I'll pull up the first visual.
Okay, so when you go into chapter 2, one of the first things that it's going to have the students do is fill out what we call the bullseye chart. So the bullseye chart is where they're going to fill in their passions, their roles, their virtues, all of those types of things. And it's going to have them kind of do it with an empty brain. So when they first start, they're gonna want to put in their roles. What am I? Okay, I'm me personally. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I'm an employee. I'm a dancer. I'm a teacher. I have lots of roles. And then, then it has them put in their skills and aptitudes. They may not be able to think of everything all at once. What they will do to enter those roles is just click on the word. So where it says roles, they would just click on the word roles, and a box will pop up just like that where they can enter the information. As soon as they enter the information in, it saves, but they do need to hit update, and then it will enter it into their bullseye chart. So they may not have a completed bullseye chart right at first. Right at first, when they start the chapter, they're not going to know everything. They may not understand everything. Now, there is an area that explains to them what each of those things is. So they can go in and say, okay, my passions are this, my values are this. But they may not fully understand everything right at once, which is why we have all of the surveys that come afterward that gives them things like the work values survey that shows what their work values are, and then they can go back and put that into the bullseye chart. So when they've completed their 10-year plan, they can print out a whole bullseye chart that has all of that in them, and all of that is just part of who they are. It's not, I'm not just a wife. I'm not just an employee. It's all part of who they are as a whole. And looking at that kind of can help them as they're navigating and deciding kind of what is the best fit for them.
Yeah, that was beautifully explained, Brianne. Which is why it's so important at the end of each of the activities in chapter 2 to have them go back to that bullseye chart. Because like you said, even though we've got those descriptions of what each of those are, the kids or most 14-year-olds would be very hard pressed to be able to even just list the roles they play in life, let
Absolutely.
alone what their values and your passions are. These are big concepts, which is why we have the rest of chapter 2.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And then, at the end of chapter 2, they go back and they update it again. So, they by the time they're done with chapter 2, they should have an understanding of what each of those things is and how it plays into their future.
Yeah. So this is a very important activity, and hopefully we'll be talking more about chapter 2 as time goes on. But it's really important to help the students understand who they are in, like you said, that whole big snapshot of all of the different pieces. Because at 14 years old, that's what their brain is trying to do naturally. That's the stage of development that they are in, is trying to figure out who they are in the context with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And being able to guide them doing it in a productive way is so important.
Absolutely. I agree.
So now we hit the question and answer part of our live stream. I almost said webinar. We have the question and answer part of our live stream. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments. Also, if you have comment or if you have questions after the fact, feel free to email us. I'm going to pop up our contact information. Email, call. We love talking to you, as we said in the beginning. Helping people and really building relationships are some of our top values.
Yes, absolutely.
So, if you're watching this after the fact and you have a question, feel free to just drop it in the comments of the video. We do check those and say hi to us online, follow us, connect with us. We love talking to people.
Yes, absolutely. We are people.
Yes. So I've not seen any questions come in, and we are right at the 30-minute mark right now. So please look at the live institutes. Please encourage your principals to go. If you are teaching this course, it is so important to have that information. And Brianne, is there anything you would like to say before we close up for the day?
I can't think so.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Have a fabulous day, and we will see you all soon.
Bye.